Hey YouTube, what up? This is Steven, and welcome back. Alright, so this video is going to be about colorism. What else is new? Alright, but what I want to talk about this time around is, our the way we identify versus what we are in actuality, I guess, and also, um, you know, the concept of all of us being quote unquote the same, but also different, right? In the concept within the conversation of colorism, of course. All right, so let me get into this and let me explain where I'm coming from with this. All right, so I was speaking with a person who follows me on YouTube. We had a pretty good conversation in regards to kind of like mixed people and light-skinned people and how they choose to identify themselves, whether they identify as mixed, full stop, or whether they identify as, black, full stop, right? And like this person, who I was speaking with, he identifies as mixed, full stop, right? That's kind of like his identity, or the identity he's claimed. He's part black, part white, and probably sprinkling up a few other things thrown in there, but primarily part black, part white. And he identifies as mixed, right? While me, like him, like he is like biracial, right? Has a white parent and a black parent, right? Me, on the other hand, like the way that I identify racially, I identify as black / African American, right? Like that's like if I was filling out an application, that's what I would check on the race question, right? Or like someone came up to me and asked me my race. Like if someone asked about my race, that's my answer would be, that would be my answer. Like, oh, I identify as black. I consider myself black. I'm black / African American, right? All roads ultimately lead to the same destination, right? Whether you consider yourself, identify as, or you just are, they all lead to the same place, right? However, during this conversation, he pointed out to me like, oh, he had said to me something to the extent of, oh, you identify as black, but you do also identify or acknowledge that you're light skinned. And if we're all the same, how could you be light skinned? Or rather, why are you mentioning that you're light skinned? Since we're all, the same, quote unquote. Because you know how it's like, oh, we're all black at the end of the day. Sort of like that, right? Within the system that we live in, like at the end of the day, we're all black, right? And I think that, that's a good question. And I explained to him, basically like within the context, as I talk about colorism on this channel a lot. And if like I can't have an honest conversation about colorism if I can't acknowledge like my positionality or like how I factor into this. I can't have an honest conversation about colorism saying like, oh, we're all the same, there's no difference between me and you, we're all black. Yes, we all do. As I said before, we all may check the black box, the black / African American box, and identify and consider ourselves black, etc. We may all do that, but skin tone and as well as racial features do play a part in our experience within society, both in and outside the community. They do. And I can't have an honest conversation about that if I'm not acknowledging, also one acknowledging, my positionality within this system, but also even, acknowledging that, I am, I know this is going to come off a bit weird and maybe a bit offensive. It's not meant to, but I know that I do kind of benefit from colorism to an extent, you know, at least outside the community, you know, thus being a beneficiary of light skin privilege. So I have to acknowledge that if I'm going to have honest dialogue, honest conversations. It's not me saying that it's not me trying to differentiate myself from anybody as far as like I'm better than this person because of, you know, being beige, but it's more so like to be able to, acknowledge that, there are differences and speak on the differences that factor into our everyday experiences within society. And it would be the same like if a white person was, speaking about racism. They can't honestly speak about racism and speak against it and have honest dialogue if they're not going to acknowledge their positionality within society, right? Their privilege within society. If they're going around saying, oh, we're all part of the human race, race is just a social construct, raise your children outside of that, it's not going to be any worthwhile conversations from there, right? And the reason I do these videos is for worthwhile conversations, right? I have learned things from you guys. Perhaps you guys have learned things from me. There's some aspects of the Black experience that honestly I am sort of ignorant to, like some things that dark-skinned women go through. I was kind of, somewhat ignorant to that to an extent, and it's not because some people are woefully ignorant where it's just like you're just choosing to be ignorant, but some people are kind of like legitimately ignorant though. I mean, we all are kind of ignorant to some person's plight within society one way or another, right? Some of us are ignorant to the the plight of people who are not able-bodied, right? We don't know what it's like not to be able-bodied because that's not our path, that's not our experience. We're not necessarily woefully ignorant to it, but we just are ignorant to it. And I think that's sometimes what happens in some situations, right? But if I don't acknowledge these differences that we have, then I would end up being woefully ignorant, because it's like we can clearly see that there are differences within the Black community, of course, right? Even just between us being like men and women, males and females, there's a difference between that too, right? Because there's things that Black women go through that Black men don't go through, and that Black men are ignorant to. Some Black men are woefully ignorant to it and don't really care about it, but some Black men are just kind of like genuinely ignorant to it. And I'm sure it's the vice versa. Black women are kind of ignorant to some of the things that Black men go through in society, honestly, at times, And another reason that I guess, I mean, is it even something I have to point out that I'm beige? That I'm like, I'm beige or light skinned when you see me. Like, is that something that I really have to announce? I don't think I really announce it. I think it's kind of like, well, it's kind of like, well, the sky is blue. The sun is yellow. It's just like something that's kind of like obvious, to an extent. Anyway, right? I mean, if I was up here saying, just going on and on about like being light skinned or something, then yeah. But I really don't. I really try not to even be that type of person. I think this video now is sort of making me uncomfortable because I'm having to constantly speak on, like, constantly, like, because I'm saying it again and again. It can kind of come off in a weird way, like, okay, we get it, we can we can clearly see that you're light skinned. Like, you know but basically the point of this video, I guess, is just to say that we all identify as the same thing, perhaps, we identify as the same as far as like checking Black/African American, but of course, within that identity, there are differences, and the differences, us acknowledging those differences, is not. We're usually not coming from a malicious place, honestly. When we acknowledge our differences, we're just coming from, when dark skinned women speak out against, maybe like light skinned women, taking their opportunities from them. It's not really coming from a malicious place, honestly. It's just coming from a place of, hey, we kind of just have to acknowledge this, right? This has to be acknowledged. It's not being acknowledged out of spite or out of from some negative place. It's just like, in order for us to have honest conversations and to address issues, we have to be able to, just admit to who we are first, admit to, our positionality and all that sort of a thing. And I know that there are some light-skinned people who totally just want to just gloss over it. And I really try not to be that type of dude, that type of person who just wants to pretend like, oh, it's all just, equal footing 100%. When we know it's not. We know it's not. That's like a white person saying this, pretending like everything's just all well and good in the hood and it's just equal all around, right? It's an illusion of equality, perhaps, but in reality, no, it's not. And that would be just totally terrible to just do. And then there are some light-skinned people who do that, and I do my best to call it out if I see it, at least in like being perpetuated in the media. Definitely call it out, and as well, even on this channel, when some light-skinned people have posted some things, I said it and called it out. Even a couple of dark-skinned people have even posted some things. I've even called it out, even though I'm like, to an extent, it's a bit weird for me to be calling this out to a dark-skinned person, But yeah. Yeah. And as well, there was another aspect or another part of the conversation that came up, or I guess a topic of the conversation that came up, which was mixed people or light-skinned people, mulatto folks undermining black folks. All right. And I have spoken about that, and I do think that that does happen and exists, especially when it comes to the women, definitely. With the men, not as much. It happens, but a lesser scale, right? And usually when it happens with the men, folks really tend to call it out a bit more. And, black women, dark-skinned black women have the dark-skinned men's back, right? But when it happens with the women, it seems like the dark-skinned men tend to not have dark-skinned women's back as much, I'm not sure why that is, but that would be another video for another day. And also, I think that people try to pretend that we're all exactly 100% the same so that they can avoid having conversations about colorism, because they don't want to talk about it, because they don't want to have to, call themselves out, and acknowledge how they're implicated in colorism. Some people really don't want to have this conversation. Some of these same people can go on and on about racism, but when it comes to colorism, they ain't got anything. There's nothing. They don't got anything to say. You can hear a pin drop, crickets, of people being real quiet when some of these same people become real quiet when it comes to colorism talks about colorism. And for me, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to. I want to, I guess, be on the side of good, be on the right side of the issue, right? Really try and, help in some sort of a way, right? Because I think that it's necessary if we really want to solve these issues and get past these issues and move forward as a people, then it's necessary Although I have brought up my plan X, which was, light-skinned people and dark-skinned people going their separate ways. I don't want to see that. That's why it's plan X, the last resort. If we really just can't find a way to solve these issues, and I think that's what it's gonna have to be, But I don't want it to be that way, I want us to be able to be together and come together, right? Because like, I don't even want to say like allies, because I don't think that light skinned and dark skinned people are each other's allies. But, you know, perhaps if we are considering allies, because for me, I think an ally would be someone outside the community. And I think that light skinned people and dark skinned people are both inside the community, you know. So, but some people would consider light skinned people allies, perhaps if we're talking about colorism, But I would say overall the context, overall within the black experience in the United States, I will say that dark-skinned people's, I think the one group of people who have consistently had dark-skinned people's back would have been other light-skinned people, or, honestly, as a collective, as a group. Even though we can go into depth about like the discrimination that light-skinned people, have perpetuated against dark-skinned people back in the day, as far as like, oh, you can't live in this area, oh, you can't join this organization, you can't participate in this, exact. And that is an aspect. And it doesn't, we really don't talk about that aspect, because I think partially because we just feel like, oh, it's just the past, right? Even though it does sort of play out in the present as well, to a lesser extent, perhaps. But, we really don't bring it up that much, which I think on one hand, is a good thing, But on the other hand, it could be a bad thing too, And I feel like that just goes to show that, black people, we can get over things if they have ended, right? Because some white people be talking about, these cave dogs, these cave beasts, these cave trolls here, talking about, oh, it's such a long time ago, stop talking about racism. But it's like, this stuff is still going on. So we can't really just not talk about it if it's still going on, Yeah. So yeah, I know this video was kind of random and a bit out of the blue, and even it had a lot of rambling in it, But I kind of felt like this is something that kind of should be addressed, just in case some other people may be feeling some sort of a way, or maybe have some sort of a question about it, So that's pretty much why I did this video. And plus, I haven't really did a colorism video in a minute anyway. Perhaps I'll do another one sometime soon. Well, I guess I have. I talked about Cardi B. So yeah, I did do I did do a colorism video. My bad. They all blend together after a while. Because it does seem like we're kind of like just going around in a big circle, and all these issues just seem to ultimately trace back to the same place, But yeah. So I guess I'll just bring this video to a close. I don't think I really have much else to speak on and talk about. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think that I'm being, do you think me acknowledging myself as a light-skinned, individual is a negative thing? Or do you think it's a positive thing? Or you just think it's just whatever? Let me know, Let me know in the comments section. All right. But thank you very much for watching. Feel free to comment. I really appreciate the feedback. And see you in the next video. Adios and goodbye for now.